Students can then engage in those practice cases just as you would with any other platform, but because those cases are designed to be pedagogically valuable according to educator expertise, they really do help develop students' proficiency in an environment that is especially low stakes given that they recognize that it's AI. I find that it's taking the best of other platforms, but making it more tailored to the classroom experience where so many students already are.
You're listening to Speaking of Language, a podcast recorded at the Language Resource Center at Cornell University. Each week, we explore a topic related to language pedagogy and language acquisition. This week on Speaking of Language,
we chat with Cornell PhD student Jadon Geathers about the development of his AI speaking partner platform for language learners, ChitterChatter.
Welcome to a new episode of Speaking of Language. I'm Angelika Kraemer, the director of the Language Resource Center at Cornell University.
And I'm Sam Lupowitz, the LRC's media manager. We have Jadon Geathers in the studio with us today.
Jadon is a PhD student in information science here, working on creating educational technologies that streamline learning and teaching processes while fostering inclusive, engaging, and equitable learning environments. We will hear all about an exciting AI speaking partner that he is currently developing called ChitterChatter.
Welcome to Speaking of Language, Jadon.
Thank you, both of you.
We are excited to hear all the things about ChitterChatter, but before we chat, and maybe chitter, about ChitterChatter, please tell us about your background and your path with languages.
That's a great question. I feel like the first time I ever started learning language was probably back in middle school. But those experiences aren't super memorable for me. I think in the U.S. education system, it's an expectation that students, at least where I was from, in middle school in upstate New York, take Spanish or French.
Right.
And that seemed to be the case in other schools as well. All students do it, and as middle schoolers, it's more of a time for you to fool around, so you don't take that experience as seriously. When I got to high school, I took my first classes in French, and something changed where I found myself really becoming more invested in the idea of connecting to other communities or cultures. And my instructor was also from France directly.
Oh, cool.
So I really wanted to learn more about her experience since I had never engaged with a French speaker, let alone someone from France.
Sure.
And high school me found that fascinating. So I found myself putting a lot more effort into learning French. But yet again, I never reached any substantial level of proficiency, but still had a desire to keep pushing.
Nice, yeah.
So when I started undergrad, finally, I decided to take a course in French. And that course was focused much more on conversation. So it was more intensive. It did not focus on the grammar drills or vocabulary memorization that I may have encountered in high school, but rather focused on output and conveying meaning. And that was the first time after taking that class that I felt like I developed a level of communicative competence in a language. And not only did that make me feel more connected to others, but it also gave me a sense of confidence in myself to be able to do something, learning a language, which so many people deem to be really difficult, especially as you go beyond childhood. And so that experience kind of prompted me to just continue with other languages as well. I spent a lot of my youth in Texas, in South Texas, where Spanish was spoken. So I decided to take a course in Spanish in undergrad. And many of my friends also in undergrad came from China or had Chinese heritage. So I also took courses in Mandarin. And all of these courses were conversationally focused. And I found that I really enjoyed the experience of each of them. Like every time I got to go to class, I had so much fun learning, speaking, laughing, connecting. And just watching the progress build slowly over time was amazing. And so I guess that takes me to where we are today, which is here at Cornell. I'm a PhD student. And so it's not as easy to enroll in language courses. but I still wanted to have the opportunity to continue learning. I was especially fascinated by Mandarin. I think scripturally, it's a beautiful language. I love the way it sounds. I am fascinated by Chinese history. And I think coming to Cornell, realizing that half of my cohort in my PhD comes directly from China,
Yeah.
I thought that this was the perfect opportunity to be bold and confident
Awesome.
and ask them to help me on my journey.
Yeah.
So when we first met, the first day of interacting with them, I said, I'm studying Chinese, and from here on out, I want you to never speak to me in English ever again.
That's awesome.
And they said, okay, no problem.
And is that working?
Oh, it is working.
That's
And
great.
I think that the first few months were just so difficult. Like
I bet.
it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think usually, it's known that a better pedagogical approach is probably to be slightly above the student's level to not overwhelm. But, I kind of just threw myself in there because that's what babies experience.
Yeah.
Now, babies might not have the level of consciousness and anxiety that I do. But I found that after a few months of learning, was suddenly picking up phrases or having thoughts that just came out so much more naturally. Someone would ask me a question, and rather than having to do the laborious translation from Mandarin into English,
Right.
which so many of us have to go through, it's a natural part of being human is pattern recognition. I suddenly started connecting these sounds I was hearing to ideas or thoughts or feelings I have. And someone would say something to me, and it caused me to laugh or smile or imagine something rather than translate. And I knew that something about this process of speaking felt entirely different than any of the courses I had ever taken
Yeah.
or any of the other apps I had used, and that I could really focus on just expressing myself rather than expressing myself through English,
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially. And that is kind of the basis of the inspiration for my research, which I'm sure we will get into. So I'll conclude my long ramble there.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear about, and also does provide us a perfect segue into talking about ChitterChatter. So ChitterChatter is an online app that is designed to transform language classroom concepts into authentic spoken conversations with virtual practice partners. How does it work, and what can students and teachers do with it?
Yeah, so ChitterChatter, again, is a platform that facilitates conversations using AI-powered speaking partners. And I think the very natural question is to think about how ChitterChatter differs from all the other existing language technologies that are out there. Everybody and their mother uses Duolingo. That's kind of a standard. A lot of people are starting to use more conversational platforms. One of them is Speak. Another that is gaining recent traction is Pingo AI. And even ChatGPT can be used for language learning. But each of these has its drawbacks. And I can present those drawbacks first and then explain how ChitterChatter is addressing that. So with Duolingo, or platforms that even facilitate AI conversation, like Pingo AI or Speak, they have too much structure. And what I mean by that is they have a set of professionals who design these linear practice cases or linear pathways that users of the platform follow. And they follow this linear sequence until they reach the end and they receive a beautiful golden trophy that tells them, congratulations, you did the course. You can now speak this language. We know that's not true for many reasons. One, drag and drop mechanics and solely gamified components do not actually lead to true proficiency in a language. Duolingo only leads to high basic or very low intermediate proficiency, which is barely enough to hold a conversation comfortably about many subjects. And furthermore, platforms like Speak or Pingo AI do allow for conversational experiences, but they suffer from the same drawback that Duolingo does in that they focus on following a linear pathway that's curated beforehand that everyone universally follows. There's no personalization. Maybe on the scale of the conversation, there might be some variance depending on how the AI responds, but it does not follow a personalized path that caters to each student's needs, proficiency levels, backgrounds, etc. And then ChatGPT suffers from the exact opposite problem. On ChatGPT, there's actually too little structure. This is a free-form agent that's designed to help you with whatever you want. And so that provides the perfect opportunity to say, hey, I want to learn a language. But if you don't have domain knowledge about how to navigate your own pedagogical journey, understanding what's the next best step, where am I struggling, what is difficult for me to understand, is very challenging to conduct on your own.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT itself is not designed as a language partner. So it also does not really understand how to best facilitate your learning. It's also not a long-term or longitudinal agent in the sense that it's tracking your holistic language journey. It's there to really provide in-the-moment, short-term advice that can sometimes span the length of the chat, which has a fairly large context window, meaning just the amount of content that it can refer to. But in reality, it is not designed to really facilitate a long-term language learning journey, unless you have some expertise in language learning already. So, what is ChitterChatter? So many students are already enrolled in language classrooms, right? That's where many of us start our language journeys. In many institutions, it's a requirement, is learning a language. And so my idea was, what if we could kind of take the best aspects of Duolingo or Speak or these other platforms, which really are trying to make an effort in developing proficiency, but give instructors and students more control and more personalization in their experience and try to make it more authentic and tailored to their level. So the idea behind ChitterChatter is that instructors can create practice cases that are pedagogically aligned with what they're learning in their classes. So they can specify curricular goals, whether those are short-term or long-term. They can specify key vocabulary and phrases. They can specify any details that the student should reference live during the conversation. They can also specify the student's proficiency level according to standardized scales, like if you're using ACTFL, or if you're studying Mandarin using HSK, or if you're using the CEFR for romance languages or European languages. ChitterChatter has that embedded within the case creation mechanism.
Yeah.
And furthermore, where instructors have the most fun is actually in designing the situation or the scenario in which students are engaging. So they can specify the character's personality and their behavioral guidelines. They can talk about what is the setting where we're having a conversation. Am I having a conversation at a park? Is it in the cafe? Is it just catching up with a friend in my apartment? They can select from a wide range of voices to really make it feel authentic to the student. And then lastly, the instructor can specify what dimensions they want to provide feedback on. So feedback is, as I say, the mechanism of learning. It is the most important thing that facilitates student retention and uptake. And in language learning, feedback can be quite complex. If you are at an advanced level, say, for example, I've been speaking English my whole life, I might want feedback on how I'm using a particular word.
Sure.
Because I have a good command of syntax and grammar and how to express my meaning. So if I'm using a word incorrectly, I want you to tell me because I have a good sense of how that would fit into my overall language knowledge. But on the other hand, if I am a student who does not have as developed of a proficiency in a language, I don't want you to tell me that every single word I'm saying is wrong. I want you to focus on my overall message, conveying meaning, as opposed to striving for perfection. And so many students forget that that's the outcome of language learning, is conveying meaning. And I always use this example when I'm speaking because I think it really nails this point. If I'm speaking English and I come up to you and say, "Excuse me, I need go bathroom." Where bathroom? You know exactly what I'm trying to say, right? Yeah. You know that I'm asking where the bathroom is, and I'm telling you that I'm looking for that. You understand me perfectly. And if we made students feel that their meaning is understood and we validate their experience, that makes students so much more likely to continue learning, wanting to engage in the language, etc. Versus if you look at me and laugh for saying that, or you say, actually, it's I need to go to the bathroom. That's going to make me less confident. The next time I come up to you and say, I need to go to the bathroom, or anyone, I'm going to sit there and think for an extra 3 seconds or 5 seconds before saying it, or I'm going to feel a little bit more anxious. My heart rate elevates a little bit. And this is exactly how we perpetuate negative experiences in language learning for students. So instructors can specify, do I want to focus on the details? Are my students more advanced? Or do I want to make sure I'm focusing on conveying meaning? Or do I want to focus on another dimension entirely, like cultural appropriateness? And these are things that platforms like Duolingo or Speak aren't really focusing on.
Yeah.
They look only at proficiency, but it kind of ignores the broader cultural or societal context in which the language occurs. And so ChitterChatter is trying to fill that gap exactly by allowing educators to really tailor these practice cases to not only their students, but to the world, and then share those cases with other educators. Students can then engage in those practice cases just as you would with any other platform. But because those cases are designed to be pedagogically valuable according to educator expertise, they really do help develop students' proficiency in an environment that is especially low stakes, given that they recognize that it's AI, it's a controlled environment, and it's also accessible 24/7. So I find that it's taking the best of other platforms, but making it more tailored to the classroom experience where so many students already are.
And I've played around with ChitterChatter for a little bit in German, and I really like how you can adjust, as you said, the conversation partner to be, very friendly or maybe stern or all those things depending on what one might actually experience if they were to be abroad. So I had a lot of fun chatting with the woman in the German bakery.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I also will practice my Mandarin sometimes. My most recent case that I've been practicing is getting in a car accident in China.
Oh my.
And that is very difficult vocabulary-wise to navigate. But it's fun to practice like the anger and the emotion and telling someone else it's all their fault and seeing what their reaction is. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Jadon, you're also in the process of conducting some research studies that examine how ChitterChatter specifically affects students' anxiety, confidence, and their engagement when speaking another language. Do you have any preliminary results you can share or any general feedback from the case studies that you've already done? Like, what do students and teachers think and say?
Absolutely. So I have some work that's been published, but is more in its nascency. This work that I did was a preliminary evaluation study of ChitterChatter, and I published at a venue called Learning at Scale, which is focused on how you can scale learning, so make it more accessible to students. And so in that study, I used ChitterChatter across 3 Spanish classrooms here at Cornell. We had 25 students who registered to use the platform. And again, because this study was in its nascency, the amount of students who were actually regularly engaged with the platform was only 7. This is because there was no classroom requirement for using it, and there was also not really a strong explanation given to students yet, especially given how young the platform was. I mean, by this point, I think I had been developing it for like 2 months.
Oh my.
And so I spoke to some of the students who used it, and I have so many beautiful quotes, which I wish I could just pull out and find right now from these students. But the way that they convey how much ChitterChatter reduces their anxiety and boosts their self-confidence and makes them want to connect with their grandparent or their partner or their partner's family or K-pop even is one I've heard.
Sure, yeah.
Just other cultures, other communities, their own family. It's just so beautiful how ChitterChatter is exactly facilitating what I imagine is connection and confidence. And I had survey measures that also looked at how students felt before engaging in ChitterChatter and seeing what difficulties students face. And it's very clear that no matter what speaking practice assignments students work on, whether that's engaging with a native speaker or doing some form of self-recorded monologue, they face a lot of anxiety and uncertainty because they rarely get the opportunity to actually apply their language skills in low-stakes settings.
Right.
And what they told me is that ChitterChatter really provides that environment for them to feel comfortable, to express themselves and explore and make mistakes and not worry. They said the feedback is so encouraging and reminds them that the point of engaging in a language is not to be perfect,
Right.
is not to master grammar, but is to convey meaning and connect with people. And I think that was a beautiful thing. And I was very happy to share those results. Now, I am in the process of also conducting some larger scale studies. One study that I actually submitted recently, so we will see how that goes, is a study that was actually trying to improve ChitterChatter itself. So rather than just saying, ChitterChatter is a great platform and this idea should really help students, I want to say, how do I know that unless I'm co-designing ChitterChatter with students and educators who this is actually impacting? So what I did is I interviewed 25 instructors and students. So the exact distribution, I think it was 10 educators and then 15 students.
Okay.
And I sat with them and asked them, what do you think could improve in ChitterChatter right now? It was a very structured process, so I wasn't just throwing them into the deep end, but that's essentially what I asked them.
Sure.
And from that, I got so many excellent ideas about how to reorganize the case creation interface, about what kind of imagery would be nice to have in the conversational interface, what kind of feedback is preferable and how is that presented. I got ideas like creating dialogic feedback opportunities where you can actually engage with a chat bot and continue chatting about your feedback, just like you might do with your language instructor who gives you points live, rather than necessarily maybe writing something out for you. So giving students the opportunity to engage in as much and as little with the feedback as they want. And engaging in those interviews, I also got to create educator profiles that outline what are the challenges that they face in administering speaking practice for their students. Because we know that so many educators care. That's why they're in this profession, is because they want to help their students reach proficiency. So that's not a question. But the question is, what about our current system or the current structure is leading to these students failing to develop proficiency? There's a statistic that says, I think, 79.1% of high school students do not reach intermediate low speaking proficiency after 4 years of study. So what is it about our system that is preventing these students from achieving this dream that educators have and that even students themselves have? I mean, we know that students have intrinsic motivations. And so I got to paint these profiles, or I should say portraits of educator struggles sprinkled with student insights to really identify what is the problem in language education and what are the design considerations I can introduce in ChitterChatter, but more broadly that can be introduced in AI speaking partners or conversational activities in general that can really help ensure we are providing students with the opportunities they need for growth in a low-stakes environment. So that was what my other study was focused on, is a more personal interview-based study where I spoke to each person for an hour and really got their insights.
Wow.
And then the studies we're planning for the future, I mean, there are so many. I think ChitterChatter is just such an exciting platform. What I'm looking at most immediately is a longitudinal efficacy study, meaning asking the question, does this thing actually do what I say?
Yeah.
You know, I've spoken to students qualitatively. They tell me this is wonderful. Educators tell me this is filling a gap that we need. But it would be really nice if I could show that according to standardized survey measures, we see a statistically significant improvement in students' perceived sense of confidence and in anxiety and in engagement. Proficiency, yeah, it's interesting, and I do care about it, but I honestly view that as a byproduct of feeling comfortable enough to engage in the language. So I'm not asking so many questions about proficiency yet. I'm really focused about how does anxiety change when we look at longitudinal horizons. So say we administer ChitterChatter practice sessions a few times a week over the course of 6 weeks.
Right.
How do students feel at the end of it versus before? Is there a difference? because that can tell us how we might need to change things,
Sure.
what is working well, what isn't. So I think you can gain so many insights from looking longitudinally because we know that
Absolutely.
language learning occurs in a longitudinal horizon anyway. So looking at these short-term studies where I just ask students, how did it feel? Did you like it? Might not really give the full story.
Yeah.
So that's the next step for me. And I'm very fortunate to be early in my PhD career, just in the first semester of my second year. So I imagine that I will have the opportunity to look at many interesting questions alongside students and educators and really make sure that their voices are heard when I'm asking these questions to ensure that I am able to really develop ChitterChatter in a way that truly facilitates their growth and helps benefit the community and escape the struggle that we've been facing for so long.
Sure. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. Jadon, you've given us so much about what you're doing right now with ChitterChatter and what your plans are for the future, your plans and ideas and hopes. So where can our listeners learn more about ChitterChatter and how can they access the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, if you want to learn more about ChitterChatter, there is a news article that the Cornell Chronicle recently released. The title of the article, I think, is something along the lines of AI tool helps students practice language concepts in something of that sort.
And we will also link to that article in our show notes.
That'd be awesome. And if you look at it, it gives an explanation of the story behind why I created this platform and preliminary results about how it's being used, and also talks a little bit about that nascent study about learning at scale that I explained earlier. And as far as using the platform, I am actively looking for instructors and students to use it because my goal is accessibility. I think it's very important to note that I am the only person who's actively developing the platform right now. So it is a little difficult to actually be able to scale it appropriately. So as far as accessing, we are doing it on a rolling basis. So trying to make the platform more friendly to accepting direct emails from the platform or interest forms, because I really would love to have people working on the platform. But fortunately, we are actively trying to scale the team who's working on ChitterChatter, hiring engineers to help us with development. So hopefully any language instructor and their students who would like to use ChitterChatter, and language instructor of any form, whether that's university, high school, non-traditional education, etc., will be able to do so in the very near future.
Awesome. Jadon, shifting gears a little bit, can you talk a little bit more about AI in general and what it can do that the traditional teaching and learning environment can't do?
That's a great question. I think AI in general is a very powerful tool, and powerful can have many connotations. I think one thing that's very important to recognize is no matter what you think about AI, whether you think it's good or bad, there's a lot of uncertainty and hesitation around using it, and that needs to be addressed. Because if you cannot address that, and we have instructors who are not confident or don't understand it, but other instructors who are using it, we could see disparate achievement outcomes, or we could see the rise in inequities to access to technology if we don't really take the time to understand what AI can do, what it can't do, how it should and shouldn't be used, and what are the risks and benefits. And so in the context of education, which is what I really focus on, AI as a tool is incredibly powerful. I think of it as taking everything that the internet has been able to do, but allowing you to engage with that material in a conversational setting and also in a way that presents you with a synthesized version of all of the information you would find otherwise on the internet. So by that, I mean, traditionally, if you had a question about grammar, let's talk about language learning, you could go online and maybe try to use Google Translate, which was pretty bad up until recently, or maybe look on some forums or use Reddit or something to try to gain an understanding. there's no guarantee that your question would be exactly answered, but you'd likely stumble across some resource that would eventually be useful for answering your question. Whereas AI takes all that information and does a synthesis for you and also has the capacity to provide a more personalized, tailored explanation and allows you to also ask follow-up questions without any delay in an accessible 24/7 fashion. And to say that that is not a useful thing would just be a lie in my view. I think that is an incredibly powerful resource. But with power comes great responsibility, right? We know that there are so many, yes, exactly. There are so many aspects to learning that can easily disappear if we don't be mindful of how we're using this technology. One of the most important aspects of student learning is metacognitive skills, allowing you to reflect on your own behavior, allowing you to take the time to plan what you're going to do, to sit there and think about your learning state, your learning journey, where you are, what you're struggling with. And AI can answer all of those questions so immediately. And what that means is if you're not careful, you do run the risk of not actually truly absorbing and internalizing the information. And you can ask the question of, well, is it important for me to even, isn't it just facts? Is it important for me to just know this? But we forget that in education, the point oftentimes is not just teaching you the method of how you do something or teaching you specific factoids, but rather teaching you a new paradigm of thinking, changing the way that you engage with or think about the world. So I took courses in statistics. Do I know that much about statistics anymore? Not at all. But do I have an understanding that I need to, when I'm asking questions, I probably need to validate my hypotheses. I probably need to have evidence that can substantiate my claims. And it's not enough for me to just interview one person or get one survey. I actually probably need to talk to a range of people. And so that's something that statistics taught me is you gain more power with more people or more survey respondents, etc. And the details of t-tests or whatever, I'm a PhD student and I do this for my living. So maybe I shouldn't be saying too much about the fact that I often forget about the exact details of these statistical tests that I should be using. But it's true. The details may disappear, but the paradigm of thinking stays. And with AI, we can too easily get the answers directly and forget about how to actually develop these new ways of thinking. So I think that understanding how to integrate AI is, whether it's in education or beyond, is an active question that there are no clear answers to. I don't have a clear answer myself. This technology evolved so quickly, so incredibly quickly, and it's completely disrupting our traditional view on assignments and what is meaningful for assessment, completely disrupting it. And so to say I have answers would be naive, but what I do know is that this is not a conversation that should just be held by some board at the top. But it's a conversation that should be actively evolving with students, with educators, addressing their concerns, addressing their interests, and not treating AI as a devil or as a negative force of change, but rather as the future of learning and the future of making learning more meaningful and personalized for students. I think there's so much skepticism around AI, and I think it's very justified. Honestly, I do. Because we see so much AI slop or content that is unmeaningful, or we see we have people feeling like their jobs and careers and livelihoods are threatened. And I think that is all very understandable. And AI is not going to disappear. So I think these threats to people's livelihoods are very real and understandable. But I do think it's very important for us to have conversations and evidence-based conversations rather than fear-based conversations about how we can integrate AI in a way that allows education to flourish, allows new career opportunities and job opportunities that are more focused on human connection and creation rather than maybe menial tasks that we're seeing now to flourish, and to allow our society to continue to grow and become more interconnected and to advance in so many ways. So I personally am a huge AI optimist, but I must say that with a grain of salt because any
sure.
technology must be assessed for its risks as well as its benefits.
Absolutely.
So I think optimism is a very healthy thing to have, especially when it comes to AI, as long as we are being mindful of how that's used.
Wonderful.
Great. Well, I appreciate the thorough and in-depth look at that. And we just want to know, where can listeners find out more about you and your work and everything you're working on?
So there are a few different avenues for finding out more about me. One is just through my personal website. So I assume that may be linked as well in the podcast, but I can say it
Absolutely.
out loud here. It's Jadon Geathers which is just my name all smashed together, .github.io. This is where you can find information about my research interests, the projects I'm working on, look at some of my past experiences, and see how I'm engaging with my community from the research lens.
Awesome.
You can also learn about what my lab is doing more broadly with AI in education by visiting the Future of Learning Lab's webpage. The Future of Learning Lab is the lab that I am a part of here in information science at Cornell, advised by Professor Renee Kizilchech. And we do a lot of work thinking about how AI is coming into education. And my work is part of that sphere, so it maybe can provide more context to what I'm doing. But also you can visit ChitterChatter's platform itself. Every day it is changing and evolving, so if you want to learn more, you can either visit the platform or contact me directly by email. I'd be happy to engage with whoever has interest in my work or whoever just wants to chat about language learning and my philosophy there as well.
Well, Jadon, this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate the work that you do. This is so important. And of course, supporting our language learners and our teachers is always something that I personally appreciate. Before we sign off, we would like to ask you for a word in a language that you speak, that you love, that you are learning, that you may want to learn, that makes you feel inspired.
I am so excited for this question because I just learned a new word in Mandarin, which I feel like exactly embodies the spirit of my work and what I do. And that word is ren. So the Chinese character for that, it's actually not just the character for person. Ren also means person, just like people. What it does, this character ren, takes the character for person on the left side, and then the character ar, which means two, and has it on the right side. And so these characters are put together to form ren. And so what's the meaning of ren? Well, it's a Confucian value. It's like the highest order Confucian value. My friend actually was just explaining this to me 1 week ago. So I've learned about this very recently. And actually, there is no single definition of what it means. But that's not very helpful, so I can explain. It is embodying the idea of benevolence or altruism or charity or togetherness. That's the reason why you have the character for person on the left and two on the right, because it's showing like two people in the sense. Or paired communication, paired work.
Yeah.
It's embodying this idea of community.
And, wonderful.
But as a characteristic of the human experience. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. It's so simple and like visually even seeing the character for person and two, it just immediately tells you what this is about. And the fact that it embodies such a high virtue also is so inspiring. And I feel like that sort of angle on connection and togetherness is the underlying thread of all my work and why I'm in education in the first place. It's because it's so important to connect with people and share knowledge and advance together. And so I would say that ren is my inspiring word in Mandarin.
Love it.
Yeah, what a beautiful note to end this episode on. Thank you so much for speaking of language with us today, Jadon.
Thank you for having me.
Join us next week during International Education Week when we hear from our next LRC Speaker Series guest, Dr. Danielle Kaufman, who will talk about current challenges in urban language revitalization.
You can catch his talk live in Stimson Hall on campus or on Zoom on Friday, November 14th at noon Eastern Time. Until then,
Auf Wiederhören!
The Language Resource Center is located on the ground floor of Stimson Hall on Cornell's main campus in Ithaca, New York. Check us out on the web at lrc.cornell.edu.
And follow Cornell LRC on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky.
Speaking of Language is produced by Angelika Kraemer and Sam Lupowitz.
Recorded by Sam Lupowitz.
Original music by Sam Lupowitz, Dan Gable, and Joe Gibson.
Thanks also to the College of Arts and Sciences at Cornell University.
As a reminder, the ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast do not reflect those of the College of Arts and Sciences or any other official entity of Cornell University.
We thank our listeners, and do stay tuned for our next episode.